He walked into the skyscraper with trembling hands and second-hand shoes, hoping for a chance. But the receptionist laughed when she heard his last name, Jackson, son of the janitor. Security nearly escorted him out before he even sat down. The interview was a disaster until the CEO stormed in, furious about a crisis no one could solve. In that moment, the janitor's son, humiliated, rejected, and overlooked, stood up and did something that changed everything. Before we start, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. Tyrell Jackson stood outside the towering glass building, clutching a worn leather folder against his chest. His shoes were scuffed, his blazer borrowed, and his heart raced with every second that passed. He looked up at the silver letters on the wall. Zenith, Global Innovations. This was it. This was the place where his future would either begin or collapse completely. Inside his folder was a resume that he had typed at the public library, printed using quarters he had saved from his part-time job. But his real credentials were invisible. Years of watching his mother work nights as the building's janitor, years of problem-solving on paper napkins, fixing things at home with creativity no school had taught him. As he stepped through the front doors, the pristine marble floor reflected his anxious steps. The receptionist looked up, her smile vanishing as she glanced at Tyrell's shoes, then his clothes, then the folder. Her voice carried the kind of sweetness that tasted like poison. "Can I help you?" Tyrell replied politely, "I have a 10:30 interview for the junior analyst position." The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "Name? Tyrell Jackson." There was a pause, a long, cold pause. "You mean Denise Jackson's son, the janitor?" Her voice held a mockery wrapped in surprise, loud enough for two suited women nearby to glance over. One of them chuckled. Before Tyrell could answer, a security guard appeared at the edge of the lobby, summoned without a word. The receptionist leaned in and whispered something, her eyes never leaving Tyrell. The guard stepped forward, his stance already dismissive. "I have an interview," Tyrell insisted, trying to keep his voice steady. "Look, honey," the receptionist said, her smile returning with a different flavor. "This is a corporate building. It is not open for tours." "I am not here for a tour," Tyrell said, his voice firm now. "I earned an interview. Check the list." But before anyone could verify, a loud voice echoed from the hallway behind the reception. "Where is the analyst who can solve this algorithm crisis? We have a board meeting in 2 hours, and nobody has a clue what these patterns mean." The room went silent. A tall woman in a charcoal gray suit marched out, frustration on her face. Her name was Victoria Hayes, the CEO herself. She waved a tablet in the air. "I do not care who solves this. Intern, janitor, dog, just get it done." Tyrell stepped forward. His hands were shaking, but his eyes locked onto the CEO's. "I can try," he said softly. The room froze. The entire lobby fell into silence as Tyrell's words hung in the air. Even the security guard paused. Victoria Hayes turned sharply, her eyes scanning his face, confused by his confidence and shocked by his audacity. She looked at him from head to toe, her gaze lingering on the cheap shoes, the nervous grip on the folder, and the unmistakable courage in his voice. "You?" she asked, almost laughing. "Who are you?" "My name is Tyrell Jackson. I was scheduled for an interview today, but I believe this is more urgent." She raised an eyebrow, entertained by the absurdity of it all. "You think you can solve this? The algorithm that my senior engineers, people with PhDs and 6-figure salaries, could not even decode?" He nodded, though his pulse throbbed in his ears. "I don't have a degree, but I've studied every open source code this company has released. I helped my mother clean this building for years. I know the architecture of your systems better than your junior engineers do." Victoria stared at him, surprised again. The receptionist shifted uncomfortably. A few employees had gathered nearby, curious to see what would happen. Tyrell stepped closer. "Give me 5 minutes. If I fail, I'll walk out, and you'll never see me again." There was a pause, then, almost amused, Victoria handed him the tablet. "Fine, you have 5 minutes." She turned and motioned toward a glass conference room. Tyrell entered and sat at the long table, opening his folder and the tablet side by side. His eyes scanned the code, the patterns, the broken algorithms. He pulled out a pen and began scribbling notes, scrolling through the lines with surgical focus. Onlookers whispered from outside the glass walls. "Who is he? He's the janitor's son. He's wasting everyone's time." Inside, Tyrell's hands moved faster. He recognized the flaw, a recursive function that created an infinite loop and a missing variable in the authentication protocol. The original code had skipped a validation check that created a cascading error in all the subsequent operations. He wrote down a correction model in pencil, referenced 2 prior system architectures, and built a rough recalculation using nothing but mental math and instinct. 4 minutes in, he stood up. Victoria watched as he walked back toward her, holding out the tablet with his notes. "There's your answer. Your engineers missed a validation protocol from the security update that expired early. It distorted the authentication assumptions and made the algorithm unstable. If you correct the function here and reapply the input validation model, the system realigns." She glanced at it, then called over her assistant. "Check this now." Within seconds, the assistant compared the notes with the original files. Her eyes widened. "He's right, completely right." Victoria looked at him again, this time not with amusement, but with awe. "What did you say your name was?" "Tyrell Jackson," he replied calmly. She stared at him for a long second. "Cancel the rest of today's interviews," she said to the receptionist. Everyone froze. Then she turned to Tyrell. "Come with me." Victoria led Tyrell through the sleek hallways of Zenith Global, her mind racing as fast as his. He noticed her footsteps quicken, matching the pounding of his own heart. The CEO's usual stern expression was replaced by a rare look of genuine curiosity. The receptionist watched them pass, her earlier smirk now replaced with quiet astonishment. Inside the executive conference room, Victoria closed the door behind them. The room was filled with monitors displaying complex charts, emails flooding her inbox, and the hum of urgency that came with running a billion-dollar company. She turned to Tyrell with an intensity that made him feel as if his entire life had led to this moment. "Explain to me how you figured this out," she demanded, her voice low but commanding. Tyrell took a deep breath. "Ma'am, I've spent countless hours studying coding patterns, reading system architectures, and learning through experience rather than formal education. The error was hidden in the assumptions made by your engineers. The validation protocol was overlooked, which threw off all the subsequent authentication and security projections." Victoria stared at him, weighing his every word. "You have no formal degree, no engineering background, and yet you've solved what my best people could not. Why?" He smiled faintly, his gaze steady. "I grew up in this building. I saw the work behind the scenes, the unnoticed details that make or break a system. My mother taught me that no problem is too big if you break it down and look for the smallest inconsistencies." She paced the room, then stopped. "Tyrell, I want to offer you a position, not as a junior analyst, not as an intern. I want you to lead a special project team focused on system integrity and problem solving." Tyrell's breath caught. This was beyond his wildest dreams, yet something held him back. "Ma'am, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure I'm ready for such responsibility. I still have much to learn." Victoria smiled for the first time. "I don't want you to be perfect. I want you to bring fresh eyes and fresh ideas. I want you to prove that talent is not defined by degrees or status." Just then, the door opened. The senior engineers, overhearing the conversation, stepped inside, faces pale with disbelief. Victoria turned to them sharply. "You've failed this company by missing the basics. I'm giving someone with determination and insight a chance to fix what you could not." Tyrell looked around at the room full of skeptical eyes. He felt the weight of their doubts, but also the spark of opportunity burning bright. "Thank you, ma'am. I won't let you down." The CEO nodded, a new respect evident in her expression. "Good. Tomorrow you start your first project." As Tyrell left the room, he felt a surge of hope and fear intertwined. The path ahead was uncertain, but he knew one thing for sure: his life was about to change forever. The next morning, the entire building buzzed with whispers. Some employees avoided eye contact. Others stared openly as Tyrell stepped into the same lobby where he had once waited for his mother to finish mopping the marble floors. Now, he wore a blazer borrowed from a neighbor, a small notebook in his hand, and a fire in his heart that not even fear could put out. He took the elevator to the 22nd floor, the same executive level that once felt like a faraway kingdom. As the doors opened, Victoria Hayes herself was there waiting. Her presence commanded silence. Her nod to him said everything. "Let me introduce you to your team," she said. Inside the boardroom, 5 team members were already seated: system architects, a security director, a senior executive, and the very engineer whose mistake Tyrell had caught. Their expressions were unreadable. Victoria spoke firmly. "This is Tyrell Jackson. He will be leading the System Integrity Task Force. He earned that position by doing something you failed to do, seeing the truth others missed." There was tension in the room, but also curiosity. Tyrell stood in front of the whiteboard. His hands were steady, his voice clear. "I know I don't look like someone who belongs in this room. I know many of you are wondering why I was chosen, but I didn't come here to replace anyone. I came to fix what others overlook. I came to learn, to contribute, and to prove that brilliance has nothing to do with a resume." He outlined his plan. It was not polished, it was not traditional, but it was bold and it made sense. As he spoke, some team members exchanged glances, not of disdain, but of realization. After the meeting, one of them approached him. "You saw what I missed," she admitted. "That took guts." Tyrell smiled. "Mistakes happen. What matters is how we handle them." By noon, the team had already begun working on the first recalibration project under his direction. He did not bark orders. He asked questions, he listened, and he proposed ideas that surprised them with their clarity. Bit by bit, he earned their respect, not by demanding it, but by showing up every second with grit and intelligence that could not be denied. That evening, as the office lights dimmed and employees packed up to go home, Victoria stood at the window of her office. Her assistant stepped in quietly. "Ma'am, the board meeting is in 2 days. Shall I prepare a presentation?" Victoria shook her head. "Tyrell will present." The assistant blinked in surprise. "Ma'am, he's new. He's the future," Victoria said without hesitation, "and the board needs to see it." As Tyrell rode the elevator back down, exhausted but glowing with quiet pride, he passed by the same receptionist who once told him to wait outside. The woman looked up, embarrassed, then spoke softly. "I didn't know." Tyrell paused, then replied kindly, "Most people don't." Outside, the evening breeze kissed his face. He looked up at the glow. The logo of Zenith Global Innovations gleamed as Tyrell whispered to himself, "I belong." 2 days later, the executive boardroom gleamed with polished wood. The 15 most powerful stakeholders of Zenith Global sat silently, their expressions unreadable. These were the people who shaped markets, influenced industries, and expected perfection. At the head of the table sat Victoria Hayes, arms crossed, eyes steady. Beside her stood someone the board had never seen in this room before, Tyrell Jackson. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the microphone. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on his chest. The board members glanced at each other, some with doubt, others with mild amusement. Victoria finally spoke. "This is Tyrell. He will present today's findings. I suggest you listen carefully." He stepped forward, heart pounding but eyes clear. "Good morning. 2 weeks ago, your quarterly security reports showed promising improvements. However, what seemed like progress was built on a system flaw, small one, but one that could cost this company billions if not corrected. I found it, and I'm here to show you how to fix it." With each word, his voice grew stronger. He clicked the remote, screens lit up the room, code flowing with clarity and purpose. He walked them through the layers of overlooked protocols, the cascading effects, and his plan to create a real-time audit system that would prevent such blind spots in the future. For 30 minutes, there was not a single whisper in the room. When he finished, there was silence. Then one board member leaned forward, steepling her fingers. "Where did you graduate from?" Tyrell paused. "I didn't. I was raised in this building. My mother worked here as a cleaner for 28 years. She taught me discipline. I taught myself the rest." A ripple of surprise moved through the room. Victoria stood. "His education came from the same floors your shoes walk across daily. I've seen thousands of resumes in my life. None of them mattered today. What mattered is results." The board conferred quietly. Then the chairwoman stood. "We accept your proposal, and we approve a new department under your leadership, System Integrity and Security." Tyrell blinked. "Under my leadership?" Victoria nodded. "Effective immediately. You've earned it." As he left the boardroom, his phone buzzed. It was a text from his mother. How did it go? He smiled, tears forming, and texted back, "I think I just got promoted." Later that night, Tyrell stood outside Zenith Global, gazing at the building that once felt so distant. He thought of all the times he watched his mother walk through those doors with aching feet and quiet dignity. She never demanded respect. She simply lived with purpose. The next morning, as he arrived for his first day as department head, his mother stood by the glass doors. In her hands was a small, worn-out lunchbox, the same one she carried when he was a little boy. "I saved you a seat at the table," he whispered, hugging her. She looked around at the executives passing by, then at her son, now standing tall among them. Her eyes filled with tears of pride. "They finally see what I always saw in you," she whispered back. The security guard who once turned him away now opened the door for him with a respectful nod. Everything had changed, but Tyrell had not forgotten where he came from. Because sometimes the greatest leaders are the ones who started with nothing but built everything.